Hi, Nicole here with Parental Alienation Resource. Today I'm doing an interview with Jim Sisco. Jim is a father of 3 children. He has not been able to touch his children in 3 years. No hugs, no hanging out, no spending time together, no enjoying vacations, dinners, putting them to sleep, nothing. The only thing that he has is a Saturday evening phone call where his ex-wife lords over the children, and if he says anything she does not agree with, she shuts the computer down on him and he cannot talk to them again till the following week. Imagine what that teaches the children. Imagine how the children feel after they've had their father shut down in front of them after waiting for a whole week to speak to him. Now, the family courts think she's the better parent. Why is that? Why would the family courts keep the children away from a loving military veteran, book author, well-respected member of the community for almost 3 years? There's no reason for that. That should not be allowed. Parental alienation is real. It affects real people. It can affect you. If you think that you can't become a victim of parental alienation, think again. And if you think someone has had to have done something to have their children removed from their life, also think again. 22 million parents are victims of parental alienation. Children are taught to fear and reject loving and available parents. Family courts contribute to the alienation. No one is held accountable. It's time to come together and change that. To learn more, visit parentalalienation.resource.com. So I wanted to do an interview with you because a lot of people think that this cannot happen to me. And you pretty much the poster child for it can happen to anyone. You are the epitome of the all-American, served his country, did his best growing up, owned your own business, never haven't been in trouble. You probably have every
Investigations.
yeah, all kinds of things that the normal parent wouldn't have to go through. You already jumped through all those hoops, even probably before becoming a parent yourself. But now here you sit and you haven't seen your kids in almost 3 years. How does that happen?
I was totally unprepared for divorce, and I
Uh-huh.
was totally unprepared for custody battles. And um, you know, I equate it to, in combat, I have training, I have the equipment, I have guns and ammunition and grenades and AT4s and laws, and when it came to actual divorce, custody, lawyers, I was totally unprepared.
Right.
Um, didn't understand the resources, didn't understand the system, didn't understand anything, and was disadvantaged.
Mhm.
My ex-wife was lawyered up, had everything, uh, you know, prepared, and they had a strategy. After she had already given me in a pende lite order primary physical custody of Ryan and Tabitha, the twins, who I raised for a year by myself. So this is the perplexing thing. She gives me custody of Ryan and Tabitha. I raise them for a year. She keeps Samantha to herself because she doesn't want to be alone. I do an incredible job raising the kids. I'm taking them to rugby practice. I'm coaching their rugby team. Tabitha's getting straight A's in school. We're writing letters to the president of Cornell University because she wants to be a veterinarian. My son Ryan, he's getting A's and B's in school, and I take him to the pediatrician, and he's not on ADHD medicine or anything. He's active, and then my ex-wife wants full legal custody, has this draconian court measure where she can now alienate the kids from me, and it makes no sense. My youngest daughter, while in my ex-wife's care, threatened to commit suicide. Same daughter now is on TikTok, you know, um, and she's singing very graphic lyrics and content with filters on her face. And my son is now failing in school, gets D's, C's, and D's, and F's. Is on ADHD medicine. She put all of the kids in counseling. So yeah, I mean, it's just unbelievable how I'm in this situation, how I got here, and I would never want anyone else to have to go through what I've gone through. And fortunately for me, I've had this training. I've got 4 combat tours, but it's taken a toll on me physically, emotionally, and financially. And I was incarcerated for 5 days. I had a stroke. I suffered through anxiety and depression, and but as I try to kind of help people understand this, I think a lot of my friends have been, honest with me in that, I have this will and strength, and I've never kind of deviated from that. And I work out, I play rugby, I wrote a book about this. So I wish that no one would have to experience this, but if they do, I would hope that they can learn from what I went through.
Right. Now, what do you tell people to watch for the signs of parental alienation and this kind of thing coming? Did you see signs before it actually hit you right in the face?
No, I mean, I honestly married for 11 years, and I think like most men, I wasn't nefarious in my views of the marriage or the relationship. I never tried to undermine it. I always, reinforced my friends and family. Oh, Liz is a great mom. She's doing a great job. And I think that I was doing that to support her emotionally, but I knew that it wasn't true. But I never took the time to go, let me look at this, from a logical perspective and try to measure her performance as a mother or as a parent. And when all of the alienation started, it was like a big slap in the face. It was like I didn't understand it. I didn't. I mean, here's the other problem. Like, I'm married. Everything is great. 2 vacations a year, skiing in the winter and summer, going to the beach, and just doing everything that the normal couple is supposed to do with their children. And I didn't understand, how I think society was evolving around me, because I was kind of like in my own little ecosystem, that family ecosystem I was in. And when I was removed and thrown into this other environment, like all of a sudden, parental alienation, narcissism, all of these, gaslighting, and all of these things start coming to, into my life, and all of a sudden now I'm becoming familiar with these terms, or different things, and now they become apparent. So if that makes sense, like you're in this nucleus, and all of a sudden you're thrown into a different environment, and all of a sudden your eyes are open to what's been happening around you for years that you are kind of oblivious to.
That's a lot. I see a lot of parents looking things up and self-educating and just a lot of time doing things that a normal parent shouldn't have to be doing, and try to make yourself into the person that you think that they want you to be in order for you to see your children, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, and I think that's the key to what you just said is really important. I was at a really dark period in my life, and I started questioning myself, my character, my integrity. Started believing the voices, therapists and lawyers, and people who, were like, you need to change, you need to fix yourself, you're the problem. And I've never been the problem. And I understand that now. And I have done everything in this 2.5 years to better myself, to be a good father, to be a role model for my children, to do the things that I had done previously,
Right.
which includes working out every day to be physically fit. So my kids look at me and they're proud to be, hey, that's my dad. Being financially independent so I can provide them with the things they need.
How old are your kids?
Ryan and Tabitha just turned 14 in February, and Samantha is 12. And I still have their birthday cards and birthday presents here, because my ex wife is playing stupid games with her lawyers where I can't even deliver their Christmas or birthday presents.
And you get to talk to them how often?
Every Sunday night for 30 minutes.
And how does that go?
It's terrible. Imagine that the kids, I equate it to kids being prisoners of war. They're sitting at a table and there's their computer in front of them, and we're on Skype, and my ex-wife is standing behind the computer just waiting to end the call. And I watch the kids when they talk to me, look at her for prompts and cues, and then recklessly ending calls. I mean, she just either puts her thumb on the camera or she'll shut the computer. She doesn't say, "Hey, Jim, I don't like you talking about that topic," or "Hey, Jim, this is a warning. I want you to, talk about something else," or "Hey, kids, say goodbye to your dad. I'm going to end the call." I quantified it. She's ended over 75 Skype calls. And my lawyers, just sit there and watch the videos and like, "Oh, yep, she's violating the court." Or, "Oh, yeah." I'm like, "Well, what are you going to do about it?" "Well, there's nothing we can really do." And she's been emboldened and empowered by her parents, by her lawyer, by this court order. And until the court order is modified, which in July it will be, she'll continue to behave and act irrationally.
Right. So your children and your relationship with your children remain in limbo until your appointment can hopefully get in front of a judge who is going to listen to your story.
Well, today my lawyer is filing a motion with the Fairfax County Juvenile Domestic Court and asking that the court allow me and the children to enroll into a Stronger Together program where the program offers supervised visitation.
Mhm.
And I have asked the court or petitioned the court that we use this as a bridge to reunite me with my children and to help identify ways to co-parent prior to the July hearing. For me, it's a win-win. I get to see my kids,
Right.
and I dread the idea of having a counselor watch me interact with my children to make sure my behavior is not inappropriate.
Right.
For somebody like me, 11 years raising kids, raising them by myself, really strong foundations in faith and in character and integrity, to have some counselor watch me like I'm some pedophile or some deviant, it's just disgusting. It's just heartbreaking for me. And all I want to do is be a positive role model in my kids' lives. I want to be able to shape and influence them. I want to be able to teach them and give them the lessons that I learned in my life so they can be successful.
What kind of things are your kids missing out on by not being able to have this relationship with you?
So, in my opinion, the biggest thing and the greatest influence I have is putting them on the right course and teaching them right and wrong and understanding the values that are important in life and character, hard work, integrity. So, my ex wife, and this is not like me attacking my ex wife, I am just being very matter of fact, was given everything her entire life by her parents. She grew up very entitled. She doesn't have a hard work ethic. And I saw that when we were married. And this is a reflection that I understood that in the relationship. She would have cleaners come to the house and she didn't really do a lot, didn't refuse to work for years and then finally got a job. So I see how my kids are becoming entitled. My daughter's on TikTok. My son's, failing in school. He doesn't have the will and he's gaming all the time, hanging out with the wrong kids. You know, it, I can see it, and I've seen our relationship kind of deteriorate or erode over the past 2.5 years by her continually undermining me, hanging up Skype calls. I mean, look at the message she's sending, just hanging up the Skype call.
Right.
And what is that conversation like? "Hey, mom, why did you hang up on dad?" Or, "Hey, kids, I didn't like the way your dad said this." And I mean, I've posted some of these, uh, Skype calls on TikTok, and people can judge for themselves. I mean, the last Skype call ended in 11 minutes because I was explaining to Ryan that, I'm concerned because he doesn't have good role models in his life. and that he's learning the wrong lessons. So,
Yeah,
this is,
imagine when they're teenagers, they're not gonna have any respect for you. It's gonna be hard for you to parent them.
yeah. And, it's all now about money. Let me take him on trips. Let me buy him Legos. I looked at my son. He's like, he still has that. Hey, Dad, let me show you. I want to show you this. So there is that connection. And then he shows me this $300 Lego. And he's like, oh, Mom bought it for me. I'm like, okay, great. And then a week later, hey, I got another Lego. I got this. I got that. You know, one of the things that I miss the most about the kids is that every day before school during COVID, we would go to the park with our dog Ryder and we would play ball. And it wasn't the going to the park and playing ball. It was going to the park and walking around the lake. Because during that time, I was able to connect with them, I would have these meaningful conversations about life, about school, about their friends, and be able to discuss with them as like little young adults. And and the other things that I try to do, I every day I took my daughter and went to up the block to our neighbors, and they would walk their dog. She made like $300, and I put it in a bank account for her. It's the things that a parent should do that I'm not able to do that really kind of hurt me the most.
Right, and she's teaching them an unrealistic, pretty much unattainable life, unless they find someone who's going to foot the bill for them.
Well, that's what and my fear is that's what she wants. She wants these children to be dependent upon her emotionally and financially. I mean, she doesn't want these kids out of the house and going to college. She doesn't want to ever be alone. And she wants these kids to be dependent upon her for her. You know, this is my friend Abdul Raham. He's from Saudi Arabia, a really smart guy. And he's seen this whole thing unfold. And he said to me, Jim, Liz has something that we call in Arabic called the empty eye. And the empty eye is no matter what you have in your life, you're always going to be looking elsewhere. Like when I bought her a brand new Volkswagen SUV, and she said, well, I was really wanted a Range Rover. So she would look at other houses, look at other cars, look at everything. Like she has this insatiable appetite for things, and that's been giving things your whole life and not working for them. And you can never be fulfilled. It's like a well that you can never put enough water, it'll never fill up. And where she gets her fulfillment now is keeping the children away from me and having them dependent upon her. So she'll never want to concede or give any control back to me because that destroys her whole worldview, her narrative, and it just is going to destroy her identity.
Right. Well, from what I've watched your videos, and your kids they still want a relationship with you. She hasn't poisoned them to the point where they're not speaking to you or they're refusing communication or they're angry because they have to talk to you. I see that they want a relationship. So that's definitely a positive because a lot of parents, they don't have that. A lot of the parents, their children basically hate them. And it's sad. And these parents are waiting, hoping when they turn 18 that they're going to come back. And a lot of them don't.
Yeah, if you want to ask me what my greatest fear is, my greatest fear is that the children become so brainwashed or programmed by her that their negative feelings manifest against me. And I don't know what I can do to prevent that. And I will tell you from my own experience, I didn't speak to my mother for 3 years. And I had a rough time with my father growing up because they hated each other and they blamed each other for the divorce. They used each other, used the kids, me, as pawns against each other. And I don't want to do that. So I have to play this balancing act of how do I manage this? How do I manage the kids? How do I co-parent? And how do I deal with somebody who I truly believe has some mental health issues? And if you look at the actions and behavior over 2.5 years, and prior to that, you saw the videos when I brought my daughter brought Ryan and Tabitha to my daughter's, to my ex-wife's house to see her their kids and, my daughter on her birthday, and she wouldn't allow them to come in. I mean, how do you explain or justify that? And I mean, when my daughter threatens to commit suicide, she doesn't tell me. I can give you, probably 20 examples of where my ex-wife jeopardized my children's safety and welfare. I mean, when my ex-wife knows that my daughter's on TikTok doing the things she's doing and allows it.
You're going to Iraq tonight?
I am.
Yeah.
Yeah, I leave tonight, 8 o'clock.
So what are you going to be doing there?
I was asked by the Rafidin Center for Dialogue, which is a think tank in Iraq, to lead a panel discussion on the current Israel-Palestine conflict, using the methodology that my company applies to its risk analysis to understand the conflict and come up with potential solutions.
Very interesting. Not something that comes out of everyone's mouth.
No, but you know what? It's very insightful because the methodology that my company uses, I apply to my own life and I've applied to this situation. And it really is helpful. And I wish that other people could understand it because it really helps understand human behavior and identity and action. So like when I look at what my ex-wife is doing, I look at it through the lens that she views it. In her world, her logics of appropriateness make her actions logical to her. She has created a world where she believes that alienating me from the children supports her own narrative. It reinforces her identity as a mother, either intentionally or unintentionally. She knows she's doing these things and they're wrong, but she chooses to do them because her logics of appropriateness tell her it's the right thing to do. Her actions and behaviors are driven by the world that she has created. So I understand why she's doing it. It takes a therapist to realize what you're doing. This is wrong. And this is what I see a lot in other cases. Women or men, they surround themselves by these support networks that are going to reinforce this bad behavior. If you talk to my sister-in-law, you talk to my brother, you talk to, my friends who know Liz, they're like, what is she doing? She has lost her mind. She is sick. And they want to talk to her. What does she do? She doesn't talk to them. She blocks their phone numbers. She refuses to respond to emails. And she returns my sister sent the kids birthday cards and she returns the birthday cards. So she's not allowing anyone to destroy her narrative that she's created or erode the worldview that she's created in her own mind.
Right. That's what narcissists do. They trap their victims in this little bubble and they don't let anyone penetrate it so they can't expose them.
So if you look at what's happening in Palestine and in Israel, it's the same thing, but on a very higher magnitude. You have these atrocities that are happening to, within these population groups, and these individuals, these populations create these identities, and all of these actions reinforce it. So people are asking me, is there a peaceful resolution? No. This is going to happen for generations. This is going to continue for generations. The animosity and hate that's built between, the Palestinians and the Israelis is not going to go away with a peace negotiation in Oslo or in Qatar. And the same thing kind of holds true with my relationship with my ex-wife. This is not going to be solved by the court. The court is not going to mandate behavior. And me, I'm willing to do this, but I know she's not. So I'm going to have to fight her for the rest of my life. This is going to be a battle for the rest of my life. Hey, Jim, I think the kids need cars. They just turned 17. You need to buy them a car. Liz, I spent $200,000 on legal fees because you're being an immature, vindictive person. You can buy the cars. Well, my mom and dad will buy them for them. Or, hey, they're thinking about going to college here. Well, guess what, Liz? They need money for tuition and this and that. Liz, I gave them my GI Bill. My responsibility to their education is over. I also invested in the trust They have money to pay their student loans. Everything is going to be a battle. And
Right.
I understand that. And I have to deal with that. And I really wish it wouldn't be that way. I mean, but imagine that, my daughter's wedding. I can imagine my, ex-wife. Well, I don't want your father walking you down the aisle. He wasn't a part of your life for 3 years. Yeah, mom, you wouldn't let him see us. Well, no, that's not what it was. It was the court. The court said it. I see what's gonna happen, and it's just disturbing, and that's what another thing, I don't think many people realize that they have a lifelong battle ahead of them.
Yes. Yeah, and the children do too, unfortunately. Unfortunately, I've seen a lot of children, even in my own, cut off the parents, which is that's not an easy thing for a child to do, an adult to even do. So
I
it's
have probably 5 or 6 friends who have estranged relationships with their children or their parents based upon the parents' activities during their childhood. Um, and this is the other thing. I don't understand her because there's so many cases like this. Does she think that she's going to brainwash them into believing that I left them or abandoned them? Is she going to try to brainwash them into thinking that I was abusive or that I was the problem here? Is she going to play the victim mentality or role? And I just want to expose her for what she is and who she is, and
right,
not to have the children hate her, but for have the children realize what I have been through for 2.5 years. And I say, kind of jokingly, if you're looking for sympathy, look it up in the dictionaries between shit and syphilis. I don't want the children to have sympathy for me. I just want the children to know that I fought for them every day and
right,
that the challenges and adversity that I faced go way beyond anything that any father should have to deal with.
right. And that they shouldn't do this to their children because
I
that's
mean,
simple.
yeah, I mean, but this is something that I hear is generational. And I was, like I told you, my mother was married 4 times, my father 3 times. I experienced this firsthand. So when I did get married, I was like, I'm never getting divorced. I never want to put my kids through this. And lo and behold, my kids are going through a 10 times worse experience that I went through. And I
Right,
can't do anything about it, which makes me helpless.
right. So what have you been told that you did do to lose your ability to parent your children?
The court order by Judge Thomas Mann said that I had alienated the children from the mother, and that this alienation was so severe that it was tantamount to child abuse, and that his 30 years on the stands as a judge, he had never seen anything so egregious. Just the hyperbolic statement of that alone was just unbelievable. And his evidence for this was a handful of phone calls, voice recordings, where in the earshot of the children, I had denigrated mother. And he said that even one denigration of a parent in front of the children would create years of psychological trauma and abuse. I mean, this guy was off the rocker. And one example was my ex-wife had me suspended from coaching the kids' rugby teams. And this is like 3 weeks, 4 weeks before the state championships. Coached them for a year. And it was after a rugby game, and we were walking to the car, and my ex-wife was really just, I mean, weird behavior. Like I would walk with the kids and she would walk with Samantha and be like, don't go near your dad, or I got here. And I'm like, what are you doing? And anyway, we get to the car and she had a box of Krispy Kreme donuts. And I'm like, sweet, Krispy Kremes. And we weren't divorced at the time. I'm like, Krispy Kreme, sweet. And my son, Ryan's like, hey, dad, here, you want one? And hands me the Krispy Kreme donut. And I'm like, thanks, Ryan. And she's like, you can't have that. I bought those. Those are my donuts. Put it back. And I'm like, Liz, I pay your car payment. I pay the mortgage. I'm paying for your lifestyle. And you're going to complain over a Krispy Kreme donut? I'm like, come on, man. So I was on the phone with her, and I found out that I had to get suspended because after that incident, she complained to the coordinator for SYC athletics, and they opened up an investigation because she said that she was abused or something like that after a rugby game by one of the SYC employees, and she wouldn't even say my name. So they did a big investigation. They find out that she had lied, but in the interim, I was suspended. So when I was on the phone with her one night, I'm like, I was having dinner with the kids. She calls, and I'm like, walk out of the dining room into the kitchen. I'm like, Liz, what are you doing? I'm like, why did you get me suspended from coaching the kids rugby team? I go, you are the worst mother in the world. You win worst mother of the year award. And the kids heard me and they're like, yeah, mom, you suck. Why'd you get dad suspended? That audio recording and a handful of others where the children weren't in earshot were what they used as evidence to say that I was alienating the children from my ex-wife.
Now, did you get to show your video of you bringing the children over and her not letting them in?
So no, I was not able to because the judge and her lawyer would block every attempt for me to introduce evidence. And the judge, I literally remember I have a binder I downloaded almost 7 years of text messages and then 2 years of text messages during the divorce to show the over 47 examples of alienation where the kids are texting her, mom, can we do this? Can dad do this? Can we see Shorty? And she would not respond, or I will not talk to you, da 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 da. And I was sitting on on the bench, testifying, and I said, Your Honor, I'd like to enter Exhibit E. Exhibit E is 7 years of text messages that show that there was never any abuse or physical or emotional abuse towards my ex-wife, and this year and a half, 2 years of text messages which show over 50 examples of alienation on the part of my ex-wife. He looked at me and goes, Mr. Sisco, do you expect me to read all of this? And I was like, I didn't know what to do. He has delivered some of the most egregious rulings, not only to me, but to other people. And his reputation within the courts and within his colleagues and peers and contemporaries is that nobody knows what's going to trigger him. He's a loose cannon. You don't know what you're going to get. They allow this behavior to continue. As a matter of fact, he got appointed to the Supreme Court of Virginia. And, this is indicative of the judicial system and the family court system, where there is no accountability. And I will, do everything in my power to make sure that he is held accountable for what he's done to me and my children. I want you to tell them why you enabled my ex-wife to keep me from these kids for almost 3 years. And in your ruling, you said, this is a cooling off period to allow mother to reunite with children. So, and there's a lot of layers to this that I can get into, the appeal case when I was delivering my lawyer was delivering the opening remarks that I wrote, and he read, Mr. Sisco has proven himself to be a more than capable parent by raising Ryan and Tabitha for a year by himself. And the judge interrupted my lawyer and said, do you believe that to be true, Mr. McGarry? Do you really think Mr. Sisco is a capable parent? I mean, what judge does that? Who doesn't have a axe to grind or is vindictive or has already made up his mind in an appeal case where it had satisfied all of the court's requirements, forensic psychological evaluation, 14-week parenting course, 18-week anger management training, completed everything and paid $25,000 in legal fees. And then he prompts the opposing counsel to file a motion to strike, approves the motion to strike, and awards $30,000 in legal fees. Every lawyer I spoke with and introduced this case to was like, this is insane. He should never have been able to do that. There's no statute for this. There's no precedent for this. He was obviously acting on his own emotions.
Right. Now, have your children been able to talk to anyone and tell them how they feel?
Interesting question. So let me tell you that my lawyer has filed a subpoena therapist that is treating the children. 2.5 years has not delivered one update, not delivered any information to me with regard to the children's therapy objectives, milestones, timeline. She has reviewed every Skype call and charged $295 to review Skype calls, has not ever sent me an email, has never contacted me and said, "Hey, Jim, I watched the Skype call and I think that you should not talk about this, or I think that you should talk about this." And we actually had to subpoena her for all of her records. And she's invoiced over $30,000 in therapy, Skype reviews, and court prep. $8,000 for court prep for her to testify as an expert witness against me.
Did you get to cross-examine her?
At the last hearing, no.
No.
At this hearing, oh yeah. You are supposed to be doing family therapy. Have you ever interviewed Mr. Sisco? No. Why not? How can you get an accurate representation of what's happening to children? And the worst thing, and I have it caught on Skype calls that I've recorded, is the kids saying, "Well, Doc said that you were abusive." And I was like, "What?" Well, Doc told us that you were abusive. And that right there, I mean, literally, when my daughter Tabitha said that to me, it was like somebody kicked me in the junk. It hurt me. It tore me apart so badly. Doc said that you're abusive. And I was like, wow. And I actually had to go, okay, let's talk about this. Well, you gave us the strap, and I'm like, you misbehaved. Was it done like this? Was it done like this? Was I done out of malice? Was I angry and mad? Did you screw up? I mean, it really was terrible.
Right.
And after I watched my ex-wife I have a 1 hour audio tape where everything my ex-wife did, she wanted to record everything. She's the Karen that shows up with the phone like this in your face. And,
Right.
you're like, what are you doing? It's a custody exchange. Just leave me alone. Oh, I'm going to show the court. You're mean. You called me a bitch. I'm like, I did not. Leave me alone. Anyway, I have a 1 hour audio tape of my ex-wife abusing my daughter physically. They're in an altercation. My ex-wife throws her into the refrigerator, corners her, elbows her, and they fight and my daughter, all she wants is her cell phone back so she can call me and tell me to come get her. You're not getting your cell phone. And they finally get in a fight at like an hour into the fight physically, and they're fighting over the iPad, and they broke my other daughter's iPad. And my ex-wife is literally laying on the floor with my youngest daughter, Samantha, crying. I mean, what kind of woman, mother is that? And then she has the audacity to say, I'm abusive, and that, like I said, that was the thing that really hurt me the most. And Dr. perpetuating these thoughts or planting these thoughts into my children. And
Right.
is that what a therapist is supposed to be doing?
Well, I've seen cases where the guardian does that, the therapist does that, the experts do that. They're all in cahoots to promote their agenda, and they have an agenda.
Yeah, funny, not so funny, haha, again. So Dr. has a reputation with her colleagues in the in the mental health profession industry. I call it an industry. I've spoken with about 8 or 9 different therapists because I was looking at alternatives to her. And they're like, who's the current therapist? And I'd be like, oh, Doc. Like, oh. I'm like, what do you mean? I think almost everyone said, yeah, doctor's probably the worst therapist that you could have on this. She practices only for a couple months a year. The rest of her time is spent on her trips and travel. That everybody says that she just does this as a part-time thing to make money. And if you look at how she's invoicing me for Skype calls, $8,000 for trial prep, all of these, kind of expenses. like I said, almost $30,000. I mean, it just reinforces everything. I mean, I can't wait to get her on the stand. I'm going to personally cross-examine her. I was supposed to be a therapist and helping them, guide them through this difficult part in their lives, which, by the way, my ex-wife created, and instead is, assisting my ex-wife on the alienation. And I don't know what she's telling the kids, which is the worst part.
Right.
Not knowing, what is she telling these kids?
Right. Well, with your little daughter, she's her putting herself on TikTok and not she's looking for something. She's looking for a love and an attachment that she's missing. And the therapist should pick up on that right away.
My youngest daughter, now listen, I love my kids equally. I mean, and parents who say that, they're lying. You always have a favorite, or there's one that's most like you. And I'm not going to say who's who, but I have a special bond with each of my children. And the bond with Samantha is different than the bond with Ryan and Tabitha. And Samantha has always had issues, with emotional issues with love and affection and acceptance. Danielle. Sorry. Um, she she one time, well, she was jealous and envious of the twins, but and always competed for attention. And I noticed that, throughout her childhood and growing up. And the one thing I can tell you is I'll never forget this day. We were in the kitchen and she was a little down. And I'm like, hey, what's up? What's going on, Shorty? What's the matter? And she's like, nothing. And I'm like, oh, come on. What's going on? And I learned, my parenting style is very hands-on. And like when I coach rugby, I'd get down and like be at the level of the children so they can feel like I'm not over them and being, aggressive. So I picked her up and I put her on the counter where I love her. I'm like, what's the matter, honey? She goes, mommy doesn't love me. And I was like, whoa, whoa, what do you mean? Why are you saying that? And she goes, mommy doesn't love me. Mommy loves grandma and pa, and mommy loves herself. And I'm like, whoa, mommy loves you. Why would you say something like that? And she goes, because she's always on the phone with her lawyer. She's always on the phone with grandma. She doesn't care about me. I can do whatever I want in the house. And all she does is buy me rabbits, and she doesn't care about me. She doesn't care about me like you do. And I was like, ow, what do I say to that? So you're exactly right. There's a void in her life. There's an emotional void. And why is she doing? And you've seen some of my TikTok videos every week. Honey, did you cancel your TikTok? No. Honey, I asked you to do it. Did you cancel it? No. Liz should be going, cancel your TikTok. Let you talk to your dad. Let you see your dad. I know that there's this, emotional void that you're experiencing and this trauma that you're going through. Let me make it better. And the thing that I know to be true and believe in my heart is once I'm back in her life and back in the twins' lives, that I'll be able to heal that and be able to fill that. And it's only going to be through time and effort and energy. And there's I'm hopeful that there's a law that was passed, and it's called the Time Back Law. And I've lost, when I go to in July, it will be almost 3 years of time. And so when I ask for the custody, I'm going to ask to apply the Time Back Law, where over time I recoup that. But I can't recoup it all at once. So it's not like I'm going to get full custody of the kids and take 3 years away from my ex-wife. What it does is it erodes of her parenting time. So we get 50-50 custody, and little by little, like every year, I'll get 20 days made up or 30 days made up, including holidays and Christmas. So I'm going to ask for the first 2 years that I get every holiday, and for me to be able to reestablish my bonds with the kids. I don't do this out of spite. I do this because I want to be able to spend that time and put my kids back on a good course. And I've got everything lined up. So when I go to court, it's boom, 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 boom. And, I will challenge any judge to show me the precedent why any of this, there's legal precedent, there's, psychological, there's studies about single parents and fathers being better parents and all of this. So I'm not going to leave the judge any latitude to make his ruling on his opinion. These judges have personal relationships with other judges. They maintain, friendships. There's associations that they're a part of. And to say that judges don't talk to other judges, or hey, this judge who's assigned to my case reads this, is like, whoa, shit, this guy, he must be a psychotic person. Well,
Mhm.
he ruled like this. There's got to be something wrong.
Yep.
So that's my biggest fear, that my lawyer doesn't have the fortitude to go in there and go, judge ruling was an abomination and should be disbarred, and this whole case should be thrown out. And using that language, and that's my fear, because lawyers don't want to go in there and say anything like that, because they got to be in front of that judge a month from now.
Right.
So it's going to be on me. It's going to be incumbent upon me and my testimony to be a credible witness and clearly articulate everything that happened during my time where I'm testifying, and convince a judge, which goes to show the problem with the family court system. I have a limited amount of time to convince a judge who does not know me, has never met me, has never seen me interact with my children, that I'm a better parent. How? There's no, I mean, this is where I look at the family court system and go, how is this possible? And they roll in their expert witnesses, and they bring in their witnesses. Her witnesses are going to be her dad and her best friend again. Her mother doesn't testify. Her brother doesn't testify. And the reason why is they will undermine her whole thing. The father is going to testify because he's the one who had the relationship with her. So he'll lie like he did in the first trial. And, you know, what are they going to testify? I've seen Liz over 2.5 years as a single mom raise these children to the best of her ability. She's been doing a great job. Oh, by the way, I've been bankrolling the whole shit. And I'm the one who buys the kids presents and does this and does that. They're not going to say she's an unfit parent. She's got some mental health issues. This is their family and her best friend. And her best friend, and she only has one. She's alienated a majority of friends that were our mutual friends, and she never had any friends outside of our mutual friends prior to our wedding. So there's a lot of questionable things that, when going back to what you asked me earlier, were there telltale signs? Yeah, I ignored them.
Right. Yeah, I think we do tend to do that. I think we think that, or we see good in people that maybe isn't there, or maybe it is there, but it will just never come to the surface. So,
Yeah, I think there's a flaw in humanity, that we want to see the best in everything, or we project that, and we, you know, don't see the signs that are right in front of us. Um, I don't know. I mean, I know that I was blindsided, and it's had a huge impact on me, in my relationship now with my girlfriend, where I have a hard time, sharing my emotions, trusting. There's always that, well, why did you do this? Or is there some nefarious thing going on here? I don't know if I'll ever be able to trust a woman fully in a way that I did, previously. And not that I had the best relationship with my ex-wife. I mean, we had, I would say a typical normal relationship. We had fights, we had arguments. We didn't get along on we didn't agree in our parenting style. We didn't agree on finance. One of the things I know in that, I think I have 2 more years of spousal support. And then hopefully when the custody gets changed, I don't have to pay as much child support. She is going to be screwed because she has makes poor financial decisions. Her parents are going to bankroll her and continue to, but that well is going to dry up. And I know in a year or two or three down the road, she's going to be screwed.
Right.
She lived a awesome lifestyle. Never had to make car payments, never had to pay for anything. And this is going to come to an end, and it is going to destroy her.
Right. I know you said that you had not the best relationship, or your parents didn't have the best relationship, and you were determined not to have that. And you ignored all the signs because that was your determination. You were going to make this work no matter what. You had that set in your mind. You do not lose. You've been trained to win, and that's just it. So you plowed through, ignored everything. You probably hoped that your goodness and your knowledge and your expertise would rub off on them and or her, and that that doesn't happen.
Yeah, and I don't mean this in a derogatory way, but I have a saying, and we have a lot of sayings. My company is a lot of fun. We have a lot of fun. We do some stupid things with the employees, and not stupid in a harmful way, but in a
Right.
fun way. Like we take interns to the gun range, when they graduate. We have like the Popeyes biscuit eating challenge for new employees. I mean, we do some fun things to make it a fun environment, but we also have some really cool phrases. And one of the phrases that I always go back to is, you can't fix stupid. And I think that's a problem because we want to try to fix people or help in some ways, and you can't. If somebody doesn't want to be fixed, you can't. If they don't want to, face up to the problems that they have, they're not going to. And I'll give you some really neat insight on me, and it'll help you understand kind of like why I'm in the position I'm in. Is I didn't grow mature physically, throughout high school. It wasn't until I joined the Marine Corps and I was in special forces that I actually became, physically, I started getting bigger. So I was picked on a lot in high school, and I ran cross country, didn't play football. I tried. Um, but like I exploded when I joined the Marine Corps, and I physically developed and became really mean and tough and aggressive, and a lot of that was a manifestation of being picked on and bullied in, my younger years. Now I was at a point where I didn't have to deal with it, and I would protect people. And one of the things that became part of my identity was helping and protecting people. And that's kind of why I joined the Marines, and kind of why I went into special forces, because I wanted to fight the wrongs. I wanted to, help people. And in my deployments in Iraq and Afghanistan, I became, uh, very sympathetic or empathetic to the plight of the Afghans and Iraqis, and what they endure physically and mentally. I mean, they live in abject poverty, and they're happy. And so this is where my identity is. Like, I feel bad for my kids, but guess what? They're not in Afghanistan or in Iraq or in Syria or in Palestine right now. And suck it up. You're going to get through this and you'll be okay. You're not having to walk 10 miles for water. You're being given everything by your mother. So I have like this empathy towards them, but I also have this tough love. And it's the same thing, towards, my ex-wife. I have this empathy towards her because she needs help, but I'm also going to hold her accountable. The kids need to know what she's done, not out of vengeance or hate, but because the kids need to make decisions for themselves at some point. Do I want to trust this person? Do I want to allow this person to make decisions for me? Do I want this person to influence my life? So that sense of always wanting to help and protect is a huge part of my identity.
Which is being squashed because you can't even help and protect your own children.
Yeah, and in the book that I wrote, I identified as father, husband, athlete, business person, and then after the divorce, I changed it to father, uh, athlete, veteran, business person, entrepreneur. And I still don't know what my identity is going to be. My business has taken a huge impact because of what's happened to me. I've had multiple injuries from rugby, so as an athlete, I'm not the athlete I used to be. And my identity of father is being eroded and attacked by my ex-wife. So it's going to be interesting to see what Jim's identity is. Um, you know, 6 months from now, a year from now, 2 years from now, and I hope that it's. I hope that I don't get become like bitter or hate takes over me. I still want to be fun and exciting and live life to the fullest each day. And I want my kids to see that, and I want them to have the same outlook on life. I look at the Ceviche song, Viche, I forget who it is, Vincent, but it's live a life worth remembering. And I don't want to be jaded and bitter and pissed off at the world. And those are my memories that fill me as I get older. I want to live a life worth remembering. I want my kids to be a part of that. And we have fun adventures and memories about all the fun things that we were going to do. And that's probably what I see a lot of men struggle with. They just get caught in this rut, and all they can think about is what's happening to them now and what they're experiencing and the financial loss. One of my friends who I mentor, he's a 28-year-old Marine captain who just got discharged from the Marine Corps, because he and his ex-wife got into a fight and altercation and they have a child, because his ex-wife was trying to do drugs, and he tried to take the drugs away from her, and they get in an altercation, and now he was administratively discharged from the Marine Corps. And I've done everything I can to try to keep him positive and focused, but his life is ruined. He
Right.
had almost 10 years in the Marine Corps, and now he's got to start all over. And he's separated from his son, and his ex-wife has custody, and so, man, I see what's happening, and you understand, and you've been talking to a lot of people what's happening.
Yeah,
And
I've
I
heard a lot of military stories where men will be deployed, their wife will be home cheating on him. She'll file for divorce while he's still deployed. She'll say he was abusive. He'll come back, he'll be divorced. He'll have a restraining order against him. He's not allowed to see his kids. He can't fight it. And she pretty much got everything of his because he wasn't able to go to court and defend himself because he was off fighting in a war or doing whatever over wherever they have him stationed. So the military is a huge problem with this.
It is, and it's compounded by the UCMJ, the Uniform Code of Military Justice, which uh, really disadvantages men in this, because there's like zero tolerance in the Marine Corps for any type of abuse or physical abuse, emotional abuse, and they've made it so any person, male or female, can go in and make claims of abuse, and it just ruins their career.
Right. Yeah, claims of abuse and it shouldn't be handled in the family court. Those are criminal acts. They should be handled in another court. And if you are going to have your rights violated, like having your rights to your children taken away, that should not happen in a family court. You should be appointed an attorney to represent you and go from there. The family court needs to change. They have way too much power.
Yeah, it's the authorities of the judges and the influence of the lawyers in the family court that really needs to be put in check.
Yeah, and accountable. The guardians need to be accountable. The therapists need to be accountable. The judges need to be accountable. The attorneys need to be accountable. Everyone gets a free for all. They can do whatever they want. The only person
Yeah,
that suffers is the person paying the bill.
and it's usually the person who has the most money,
Mhm.
who can hire the best lawyers and hire the therapists and the expert witnesses, and is the one who wins.
Yeah,
And
or not
it's
even the most money, but they care the least about the money because the money's not theirs.
yeah. For me, I know what's going to happen. It's just patience to get to July and then after July, because this whole thing is going to change. I'm going to go to court, and there's no way a court can keep me from my children. There's no abuse. There's no neglect. There's no ever been even claims of abuse. There's no alienation. There's nothing. So a court can't keep these draconian measures in place. And once the kids are back in my life, it's going to erode everything. So for me, I can see it happening. I can see that train wreck, before it happens. And I feel bad for my ex-wife in a way, because she is going to have to deal with this fallout. There's a part of me that's like, I don't want to see you suffer the way you made me suffer, because I'm not that cruel. But I don't know how that's going to happen.
Right. Well, you're human and your children have been hurt and you've been kept from your children and your children have lost out and you've lost out. And I mean, God gave you those children to protect those children. So that's in you from the moment they are born.
Yeah. And I have never put them in a bad situation. I have never jeopardized their safety or their well-being. And seeing my ex-wife do it continually is, really disheartening. Um, there's this human element to this whole situation that gets overlooked. And as a veteran, as a man, as a father, you're scrutinized in ways that are not understandable by other people, by some women and other people, because, if I act unhinged, or if I get mad, look, he can't control his temper. He's got anger management issues. No, I'm a fucking person who's been through worse stuff. I would rather go back to combat.
Right.
I'd go back to combat any time than deal with this. And then you expect me to be calm.
Yeah, I'm not sure what they expect you as a parent to do, to sit back and be quiet and watch your kids suffer and know your rights are being violated, and you can do nothing about it. If you do anything about it, and you're a businessman too, so I'm sure you hire and fire employees all the time. So you don't. A lawyer is basically an employee. A counselor that you've hired for your child is basically an employee. A guardian is an employee. If they're not doing their jobs, you should be able to fire them. You
Yeah.
shouldn't have to be stuck with these people who are just milking you for all that you've got and making up their own stories and agendas, and that shouldn't be the case. And your brain doesn't, like I said, being a businessman, your brain doesn't work that way.
Yeah. It's all about efficiency for me, cost, P&L statements, and I see just the malfeasance and inefficiencies. Lawyers, I'm charging, a quarter hour for reviewing an email. I'm like, dude, I wrote the damn email for you. All you had to do was copy and paste it.
Right.
I got a motion to the motion for the Stronger Together program from my lawyer. I spent an hour and a half last night rewriting it because, and then he gets on the phone with me and says, "Well, Jim, you wrote it really well, but this is the stuff we want to introduce in trial." And I'm like, "No, this is the stuff that the judge is going to read, and he's going to before we do the oral testimony, and you want to influence him before that." Well, Jim, I don't want to argue with you. The last time you wrote that, I took all your edits and I didn't. I'm like, because it was written better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, and I'm still waiting right now. It's what, 12 o'clock, and he was supposed to file the motion today. He was supposed to, the subpoena for doctors to be received last week, and the interrogatories for Liz were supposed to be done last Friday, and none of them have been done.
Yep.
So, and I'm not supposed to, we're supposed to have a united front, but how is it united when he doesn't even respond to emails just like Joe? And I said, hey, the opposing counsel didn't respond to the email. Why don't you go to the court and file a motion that, showing that he's been unresponsive? It's a motion to, I forget what it's called, a motion to compel. File a motion to compel. But lawyers don't want to go against other lawyers, just like they don't want to go against other
No, because
judges.
that lawyer could be the guardian in their next case, or it could be their, yeah. They don't want to work together. They're all hanging out in the lobby while you're waiting to go to court, schmoozing and
Yeah. So here's how I kind of wrap it up for you. So imagine the anxiety and stress and fear that you have for your children. And then you have compound that with the dealing with lawyers, dealing with the ex-wife, all of this manifests while you're planning trips to Iraq, you're trying to grow your business again, you're trying to, deal with the fiscal blowback of, $150,000 in legal fees, being incarcerated, dealing with a stroke. It's not a pleasant
no.
world. And in that, trying to stay positive, trying to have a relationship with my girlfriend, trying to live a positive life and not, get consumed by, these thoughts of, for revenge and hate. It's hard.
Mm.
And I'm fortunate that I have a very strong will, and I have like, this positive outlook, and I know things are going to change. But I've seen how it has negatively impacted men, and how they've taken their lives, how they've been financially ruined, how they're now homeless, and it's terrible.
Right. And not only your own personal business and struggles and that, but the struggles and things that everyone in this whole country is going through right now with the schools and the president and the immigration and the dangers of the internet and the economy and the inflation, everything. There's so much going on right now, just normal day to day, besides
Yeah,
having to fight to to be a parent. That should be the last fight you have to fight.
yeah, and I really try to minimize the influence that social media and outside noise has on me, because I've seen how this noise consumes people.
Mhm.
Um, and for me, you know, I try to mitigate that as much as I can, stay very focused in what I can control and don't let anything outside of that control me, which goes back to my ex-wife. She has her thumb on me right now, and she has all of the control. In the minute I get some breathing room and the it turns, she's screwed. And she knows it. And that's why she wants to keep, the genie in the bottle. Because when Aladdin gets out, it's fun time.
Now, who brought this to the courts? Who brought was this from? This isn't from you've been divorced. This was like a custody modification or something?
So I have filed a motion to modify custody and visitation with the court. And in response, her lawyer filed a motion to show cause, saying that I was not paying the children's medical expenses. This
Mhm.
is just lawfare, her playing, volleying back and forth in tennis. She could easily, it's written in the court order. I can read it to you. It's written in the court order. Mother has the ability to provide, grant access to children, increase in person visitation and custody at any time, as long as it's in writing. So if I wrote a letter, Liz, can I see the kids on Friday night? And she signs it, I can see the kids. This is what people don't understand. The people who are watching from the outside, she has the ability in the court order to grant custody and visitation at any time. Refuses to do it.
Hopefully, that's something that the judge pays attention to because she has had the power to do what's best for her children, and she has decided not to.
Has made no attempts, and instead made every attempt not to co-parent, and made every attempt to undermine my relationship with the kids, ending Skype calls. The last one was 11 minutes. The one before that was 3 minutes. I mean, she has ended every Skype call the last 10 in a row. And now I go to Iraq, and I'm going to be, 8 hours ahead. And I want to talk about this together, Stronger Together program, introduce it to kids, get their opinion and feedback, because that's what a responsible parent does. Hey, kids, there's an opportunity that we can see each other before July. I want to get your feedback. Would you be comfortable with us being together and somebody watching us? You know, that's what a mature parent does. Hey, tell me what you think. The minute I bring it up, she'll hang up the phone. And then I go back to my lawyer and I'm like, hey, I warned her. I told her I was going to talk about this topic. She hangs up the phone. What are we going to do? And he's like, well, Jim, this really is terrible. I can't believe it. She just sits there with an itchy trigger finger waiting to hang up the call. Yep. But I don't know. The judge could interpret it that, she's concerned for the children. I'm like, are you effing serious? This is the legal stuff. They
Yeah,
want to draw it out, and they're like, oh, well, yeah,
yeah.
this is really horrible. She's a really mean person. I don't
No,
understand why she does it.
they want to see you sit back and pretend everything's hunky dory, all flowers and roses, and you're not allowed to talk to your kids about any kinds of things they've done wrong or anything that you don't like or anything you disapprove of. They want only, how are you doing in school? How are your friends? Oh, like nothing. They want nothing of any substance.
Yeah.
They don't believe that you have the right to talk to your children of anything of any substance unless you are with them all the time. Is is what I'm gathering from that, because that's what I've been noticing in other people's cases.
Yeah, God forbid I talk to them about drugs in school.
Yeah,
God forbid if I talk to them about, their friends and say, well, this friend's probably a bad influence if they're doing this and that. Yeah, it is all superficial. And I've been told by lawyers and therapists, Jim, ask them questions and just have fun.
right.
Enjoy it. I'm like, are you effing kidding me? I'm a
Yeah,
dad.
yeah. I'm not
My
their friend.
addiction.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, and that's, where my ex-wife, she just wants to buy them things, and I'm learning more as I do more research. Coercive control,
mm,
where you're controlling your relationship with the children by purchasing them things and giving them things and being their friends and allowing to behave and act in a certain way, and condoning those behaviors and reinforcing those behaviors because that's what they want. If you look at my parenting style, I'm not here to be their best friend. I'm here to prepare them for life. And I
right,
think you've seen in my Skype calls with the kids, I'm like, "Hey, what's my job?" And they go, "To prepare us for life." And I'm like, "Am I able to do that in this environment?" And they're like, "No." They know what's going on,
right,
but once again, they can't do anything about it. They have to eat this turd just like I do.
right. And they're intelligent too. If you called up and you were like, "Oh, everything's fine all the time," they'd be like, "Well, I guess Dad doesn't really care. He seems fine. Nothing's going on over there." So,
Yeah, and that's the other thing. I've been told, like, "Don't talk about yourself and don't show them that you have a life out." I'm like, "What?" Like, I traveled, I went to Thailand, I did videos in Thailand. "Hey, kids, I wish you were here. I can't wait to go on a scooter ride with you." You know, I am not allowed to show, like, any happiness or emotion, that I have a life, that I've moved on. You can interpret that you've moved on as a parent, that you don't love them anymore. It's such bullshit,
right,
and once again, the spotlight is focused 24/7 on me, and I just
mhm,
can't wait till the spotlight shifts just a little bit and it's put on her because she will break and crack, and she can't handle it. She's been given everything her entire life. The minute she has to feel this pain, she will break.
yep. That's common too. I've seen a lot of that, where the parents are given money by their parents to fund the bill and go after the other parent. And it would look a whole lot different if they were paying the bill. I can tell you that.
Yeah, yeah, it's a totally different story. I want to touch upon one other thing,
Sure.
and it's something that I shared with you. When you go through this, you're alone. You are alone. Even like my own family has kind of been like, yeah, we really want to reach out to Liz, but she blocked our calls, and I'm not going to send her an email because it could look negatively on you. And so I have been alone in this fight for 2.5 years, and I met Chelsea about 7, 8 months ago. We live together now, and she's been very helpful. But I try to marginalize her involvement in this because I don't want to muddy the waters. And I know at some point the kids will have to establish a relationship with her. But get back to the point is I've been alone through this, even with Chelsea and my family. And I literally will tell you, when your help, your time that you spent, exposing what's happening to me, and your support has meant more to me than and that you have done more in your limited time and efforts than most people have done. And I truly appreciate that. And to the people that you're helping and will help in the future, you don't know the impact that you've had on them or are having on them. And I know it takes considerable time and effort and energy. And I know that you're invested emotionally in this, but thank you. And thank you for everything. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. That means a lot. Thank you. I
Yeah.
I I really want to help. I really want to see kids get back what I'll never get to have.
Yeah. And I will champion this effort even after my kids are back by introducing legislation. These people should not be negatively influencing lives of families. I will take this to legal battles, and I will support you in your efforts if you there's help that you need, let me know, because I truly believe what you're doing is awesome, and I know that you're helping people, and you've helped me immensely.
Thank you. And I'm sure your story is going to help a lot of people as well. What would you like to tell a parent who is in your situation?
I'm going to tell you what Robert Garza and other people have told me who have been through this and are on the other side. Don't give up. Don't quit. Do not give up. Your children are too important. They need you in your lives. You know, 11 years, Robert was separated from his kids, and he actually initiated the legislation in Texas and did other things. So don't ever quit. It's going to be a tough, long road, but stick to it. And it's going to take a lot of, you know, uh, fortitude and determination, but just don't quit, and rely upon other people to help you. And that's the biggest piece of advice I can give you. What you can do is pass legislation like the time back laws or presumptive rights for victims. I mean, you'll see that I've gotten very smart on this and quite articulate in being able to talk about the solutions, because I'm going to use all legal remedies to make sure this doesn't happen in the future. I'm going to use Robert's legislation that he used in Texas, and I'm creating it right now for Virginia. My hope is to get the legislators to pass the law before my hearing in July, so I can use that as the precedence to get the time back.
That would be
There's
awesome.
Yeah, so yeah, there's a lot to do. You just have to be very judicious in how you allocate your resources and who you're trying to take out, because the legal system, the family court system, is entrenched, and it's a nefarious, I call it, criminal enterprise, and you can't fight a criminal enterprise by yourself.